Hi, my name is Benny Parihar. I am the co-founder and CEO of Cryo, and we've put together a guide to the different types of cryotherapy technology out there because it is hard to make a decision on the different types of devices that are out there. So hopefully this will be able to guide and help you in making the right decision. I've created a little bit of a mind map which I'll be taking you through in terms of how we can better explain and navigate through all the different types of devices. So first of all, who are we? Our organization is called Cryo, and we have three different divisions in it, which is Cryoscience, which is our technology division, where we manufacture and develop cryotherapy devices. Cryo Retail, which is treatment centers and clinics in which we provide cryotherapy. We have a mix of corporate-owned stores and franchises globally. And Cryo Services is our service division and micro-bulk gas distribution business, which supplies nitrogen to systems that we develop. That's a little bit about us. So, what is cryotherapy? So the history of cryotherapy is that in the 70s, a Japanese research scientist was using cryotherapy to treat rheumatoid arthritis and other diseases that cause inflammation. And this low temperature treatment was being used to manage pain and to reduce inflammation. Now, since then, the treatment has evolved. It has gone from a localized treatment on a specific part of the body to now larger systems in which the whole body can take advantage of this low temperature treatment. Now, the main reason that you are using cryotherapy is in order to stimulate a physiological reaction in your body, which can give you many health benefits. A little bit about the industry and how it's growing is we do a lot of market research in terms of how the market of cryotherapy technology is growing. And to give you an idea, from 2011, where we had 17 cryotherapy centers, to now midway through 2018, we're already at around 1,900 centers providing cryotherapy treatment. So the treatment and the technology are growing rapidly around the world. And the demand for the treatment is rising as the operators who provide cryotherapy are rising. So it's becoming a very popular treatment. Now, the benefits of cryotherapy. So we categorize the benefits into muscle recovery, pain management, wellness and performance in sports, weight management, and beauty and aesthetics. So that's a little bit about us from an introduction standpoint. Now, who's offering cryotherapy, and are you looking to integrate cryotherapy as a modality into your business? You would have to ideally fall into one of these categories. So we've defined them into four sectors of fitness, healthcare, medical, aesthetics, and wellness. Fitness being your generic health clubs, and then the more specific ones from this list. Healthcare and medical. Now, this is physiotherapy, chiropractic, orthopedic, sports therapy. These are the sort of practices that are taking advantage of the benefits that cryotherapy brings their patients and users. Aesthetics. As a byproduct of this low temperature, which was mainly being used for pain management or recovery, there are a plethora of side effects that happen which are also beneficial to different users. The production of collagen is one. The tightening of the epidermis is another. So we're seeing the aesthetics sector adopt cryotherapy very quickly. And these are just some of the businesses we see where our devices are moving into from an aesthetics perspective. Overall wellness, so we see longevity clinics, your generic spas, your well-being, your relaxation spas, flotation centers, alternative health treatment centers, biohacking centers, and detox centers being the ones that are adopting the technology from a wellness standpoint. Now, to better understand what are the different types of cryotherapy, now we're going to be focusing mainly on whole body cryotherapy, in which your whole body has to be exposed to these low temperatures. There are different devices on the market, but how we classify the devices are partial body cryotherapy and whole body cryotherapy. Partial body cryotherapy being where a part of your body, not your whole body, is exposed to these low temperatures. So I'm going to run you through a little bit about partial body cryotherapy first. Partial body cryotherapy is being conducted on devices which are better known as cryosaunas. Cryosaunas use a method of nitrogen injection where we are using nitrogen in a liquid format and then vaporizing it and then exposing the user to nitrogen vapors and gas in order to cool the surface temperature of the user. Now, this is quite a dangerous way of conducting cryotherapy. Why? Because when the client, let's say, goes down and their head is going below the line, they can be they are exposed to dangerous liquid nitrogen vapors, and very low concentration of oxygen in the air can cause breathing problems. So I'll get a little bit into it later on, but this is the type of methodology that is being used in order for the system to operate. There's some disadvantages with cryosaunas. So first, as I explained earlier, this method of dousing the user with nitrogen gas is not safe for users. Why it's not safe is it causes nitrogen inhalation when not conducted correctly, where the user or the patient can potentially faint, lose consciousness, and feel dizzy because of the breathing of nitrogen gas. And worse, we've seen in cases where it can lead to a much graver circumstance is by nitrogen asphyxiation, where you breathe so much nitrogen in because of the lack of oxygen, and you can collapse, and also possibly death can occur in these circumstances. And this has happened in the United States in some saunas already, and globally from our research we see that there are cases where saunas are not being serviced by major gas companies because major gas companies do not want to take the risk of these accidents happening. So I'll get a little bit more into that at a later point, but another disadvantage of this system is that there always needs to be an operator present in order for the user to use this machine. The reason why is an operator always needs to be looking at the user and making sure that they don't go lower than the point of the nitrogen vapors, because if they do duck down or if they do breathe, it can cause this asphyxiation or inhalation, as I had said earlier. So these units cannot be used without supervision, and which doesn't make it ideal for private homes. A lot of our installations globally are happening in private homes. The same way someone may have a hot sauna or steam at home, they do install cryotherapy devices. And this system of liquid nitrogen injection and cryosaunas are not the most ideal and safe units to be used in homes. So that's a little bit about how it's not safe. Now, it's not as effective. Now, think about this system as a cylinder-like device, a hollow cylinder in which you are directly injecting nitrogen gas. And the nitrogen gas is then put into a vortex and spun around in that cylinder. What this causes is that there's a non-uniform temperature distribution. So the temperature that you need to reach in order for a certain muscle group or a certain body part to reap the benefits of cryotherapy need to be lower than minus 110 degrees Celsius. Now, in these cryosaunas, the temperature that you feel on your shoulder and the temperature that you feel on your ankle or your knee are vastly different. As you get higher in the sauna, the temperature is higher, and that's causing the effectiveness of the treatment to not be at the highest of its level. Now, another major point of why cryosaunas are not effective is that the head and the neck are not being exposed to these sub-zero temperatures. Now, the physiological reaction that you want to experience is being instigated when the neck and the head, which have majority of your temperature receptors, are exposed to that low temperature. So when your neck and your head are not exposed to it, you're not having the effective physiological reaction that you are gunning for. Another thing is that a lot of these saunas and systems have not been used for medical research. Majority of the research and medical studies that have been conducted about cryotherapy have been in a closed chamber-like system and not in these saunas in which the head is not exposed. So we don't know how effective these are. Another major disadvantage is frostbite and nitrogen burns. Again, due to the ununiformity of the temperature and the direct exposure of nitrogen gas on the customer or the patient is causing sometimes when there's a when the unit has a failure in some sort of fan or in its injection system, parts of the body are getting cooler than other parts of the body, and that causes low temperature burns and frostbites, first degree, second degree burns, which then need to be treated with different sort of ointments and whatnot. So this is a major disadvantage, and this is why we see major corporations and businesses and operators that want to mitigate their risk and not be exposed to such accidents, they stay clear from the cryosaunas. They also need constant maintenance. The reason they need constant maintenance is due to condensation. Now, when you're taking liquid nitrogen, vaporizing it, and then exposing it onto the patient using these systems, there's a lot of buildup of condensation. Now, when the machine is being used without back-to-back or being used over time, this condensation freezes and turns into ice, and then the ice then dries and then turns into liquid. Now, this process of condensation and freezing causes expansion and contraction of the parts within the machine, and this is why it needs constant maintenance. As the unit also gets older, the components of this unit build a lot of wear and tear on them, and what we see is that the consumption of nitrogen per session on these devices starts increasing on a year-on-year basis. So that's a little bit about the disadvantages of a cryosauna. There are advantages though. So these systems, due to their low amount of engineering and their low technology innovation, are relatively cheaper. So these cryosaunas are definitely on the lower end of the price spectrum. These devices also have relatively low consumption of nitrogen per session. Because of such a simplistic cooling methodology of just dousing the customer with nitrogen, the amount of nitrogen being used per treatment is relatively low. Also, these devices are relatively easy to install. They're very modular. Think about them that come in about two parts, a cylinder and an engine. And ideally, they're very easy to install and dismantle and move. So that's a little bit about cryosaunas and partial body cryotherapy. Let me take you a little bit into whole body cryotherapy now. So whole body cryotherapy is cryotherapy which is being conducted where the whole body is exposed to these low temperatures, including your head and neck. Better known as cryotherapy chambers or cryo chambers. Let me start with some advantages of these systems. So this is also known in the community and the medical research community as true whole body cryotherapy. So the research shows and the medical studies show that to get the true benefits of cryotherapy, the head and the neck need to be exposed, as I said earlier, as these are vital temperature receptors that trigger the required physiological reaction. Now, you have to experience it to be able to really see the difference. What your body goes through in a chamber compared to a sauna are like night and day. The treatment feels more effective. It feels the physiological reaction and the cold feels much cooler because of the fact that your main receptors around your head and neck are being exposed to this low temperature. So uniformity in the temperatures across the whole body is a big advantage of this device. Now, because you're in a closed system, the temperature that you're feeling on your head, on your shoulder, on your elbow, on your ankle are all evenly distributed. So they would always be at the same low temperature. So the effectiveness of the treatment is much higher because of this uniformity. Research backed. Now this is very important because majority, if not all, of the research and medical studies are being conducted on chambers, not on saunas. And the chambers, which mainly are closed systems, going below minus 130 degrees Celsius. So the majority of the research that you see out there has been conducted on chambers. So we always believe that the treatment and the device that it's being conducted on needs to be backed by science and medical research. And one of the biggest and the most important points of true whole body cryotherapy is that it's safe for users and operators. Now, due to the fact that these systems, you can be in a completely breathable environment and not be exposed to nitrogen vapors, this makes it a very safe device. And safety in this business is one of the most important aspects, because if you're looking to grow your business, if you're looking to scale your business, if you are looking to adopt the technology of cryotherapy into your practice and you're a hospital or you are a five-star hotel, you cannot be facing risk of asphyxiation and burns. So this system of chambers is the most safe for users and its operators. So cryotherapy chambers come in two different types: single person chambers and multi-person chambers. The key differences between the two are that one has been built for one person to be inside and experience cryotherapy, and the other for multiple people. The differences are in the operating costs of these, and obviously the cost of installation of these devices. Larger the unit, more the cost of purchasing it, and the more the cost of running it. Single person units are easier to install. They are like your refrigerator or solariums, and the multi-person ones are built like rooms. So it takes a lot of time due to the complexity of the engineering and the amount of parts that are being used. And obviously the space requirement. You don't need as much space for a single person chamber as you do for a multi-person. So the types of cryotherapy chambers. So there's two types of devices. There's electrically cooled devices and nitrogen cooled devices. Let me tell you a little bit about electrically cooled devices. So here you are using electricity to lower the temperature of air. Similar to a refrigerator or air conditioner, you are using a compressor methodology, a compressor technology, which is taking regular air and then cooling it down through a compressor system. Now, in order to reach sub-zero, -80, -110 degrees Celsius in the atmospheric temperature, you need to put them through a chain of compressors. So that is how you're reaching the temperatures using an electrical device. So the advantages of electrically cooled chambers is that you don't need nitrogen and less logistical requirements due to nitrogen delivery. So what that means is that as an operator, as a business, you would not need the logistical requirement of nitrogen deliveries on a daily basis. So that is an advantage. And it also for places which it is difficult to get nitrogen. So let's say if you're on a very high floor, let's say you're the site that you're looking to set up cryotherapy in does not permit nitrogen or does not allow the refill of nitrogen. It is an advantage there. Another advantage is that it's safe to use. Again, because it's a chamber, it is in the user and the patient is always in a breathable atmosphere. It does have some disadvantages though. So the technology of low temperatures has not evolved enough and has not been innovated enough in order to reach less than -110 degrees Celsius. So electrical systems range between -80 degrees Celsius and -110 degrees Celsius. They do not go lower than that. Electrical units are also more expensive due to using a lot of electrical parts, a lot of compressors, and a lot of high quality products in terms of the insulation required and the size of these devices. They're more expensive. They're at the higher end of the spectrum. They're hard to install. Think of these as industrial refrigerators. They need to be built nearly like rooms, and other than the chamber itself, there is also a mechanical space which is required for the compressors for the engine of the device. They're hard to maintain now. Because it's a complex piece of engineering, there are a lot of moving parts. So there is constant maintenance required. And from an engineering standpoint, more parts that you have, the more chances of there being failures in the technology. As I had said earlier, they require a larger footprint. Now, a lot of people think that because if they install a electrical cryotherapy chamber, they would not have nitrogen costs, and it would be a cheaper operational cost or cheaper operationally to conduct cryotherapy on these. But actually what people don't realize is that these systems consume a lot of power due to the amount of compressors, due to the amount of air that is required. These systems do require a lot of power. And another major part is that due to the longer cool down period of these devices, where you can't just switch the machine on and expect to do a cryotherapy session minutes later, you need to cool it down like you do a refrigerator. Now, if you are a cryotherapy business, or if you are someone who wants to be offering cryotherapy to your center on an ongoing basis throughout the day, you need to switch on this cryotherapy device at the start of the day, at your business operating hour, and shut it down at the end of it. Now, the power consumption that is required to keep it at minus 110 is very high. So that is something that is a misconception in the market, that these electrical devices are cheaper to operate. Actually, they are quite expensive to operate, and depending on what the cost for electricity is in different countries, this varies. The longer cool down period is something that I would like to dwell down on a little bit longer. Now, if you are planning on doing cryotherapy treatments on an ad hoc basis, if you are in a retail mall, if you want to do cryotherapy for people from a non-appointment walk-in basis, you can't use these electrical units to just switch them on and conduct a cryotherapy session. So from a commercial setting where that is a need, they're not the most commercial friendly from that perspective. So that's a little bit about the electrically cooled chambers. Now, let me get into what our solution is and what we work towards, which we think is the most efficient way of adopting cryotherapy. So nitrogen cooled systems. Let me show you something that will explain better what it is. So first of all, in the nitrogen cooled systems, again, the user is in a completely breathable atmosphere. They are not being exposed to nitrogen gas. Let me explain a little bit on the technology and how we deliver this solution. So again, like a cryosauna, we are still using nitrogen. Now this nitrogen is used in our chamber as an agent to cool down cold air. Within this housing lies a heat exchanger system. Now, this system converts and uses nitrogen to cool down air. So, what the client and the user is in contact with is fully breathable air, and the nitrogen is being exhausted through a ventilation system out. So that's the reason we're not being able to achieve this safe environment. So nitrogen cooled systems are also advantageous because we're able to reach a lower temperature. The limitations of electrical devices of minus 80 to minus 110 are surpassed in nitrogen cooled devices. You can go anywhere from minus 110 to minus 140 degrees Celsius in these chambers. And the research shows that you have to be between that low temperature of minus 110 to minus 140 in order to promote the health benefits that are required. So the nitrogen system allows you to be able to do that. Again, using nitrogen, you're able to cool down the unit faster. So to reach a temperature where the user can use the machinery only takes a matter of minutes compared to electrical systems which require over an hour, which makes it great for a commercial setup where I can have my machine off and someone comes in and decides they want to do a cryotherapy session. All I need to do is put it into cooling mode, and in about 3 minutes, the unit is ready for treatment. So this fast cool down time is something which is a great advantage in these nitrogen cooled systems. So I want to talk a little bit about our Cryoscience Arctic whole body chamber. So the Arctic cryotherapy chamber has been designed from a user and operator perspective. Through our experiences of cryotherapy treatment centers and through the liquid nitrogen gas division that we have, we were really able to design a unit which would be of pinnacle use on the users and also for the operators to be able to monetize off these devices. So we took the data of around 100,000 treatments from our retail operations in order to develop this technology. I'd like to go a little bit into the features of this unit. So let me show you a picture quickly of what the Arctic looks like. First of all, one thing that I'd like to point out on is it is a aesthetically designed unit which fits well into its environment, whether it be a hospital, whether it be a clinic, whether it be a sports team. It was designed in order to fit in and designed from a sleek perspective. So what are a few things about the Arctic that I should tell you about? So there's a digital touchscreen in which you can choose different protocols. So the device has preset protocols for beginners, intermediates, professionals, and also a customizable option where you can individualize the treatment from a temperature perspective, from a height perspective, for the user, because every body is different and every person has different body composition index, they have different weights. So what one person needs from a cryotherapy treatment is very different from the others. And the software allows you to do that. So this is something that is very, it's a very liked feature on our unit. Now, we're using the highest quality cryogenic materials. And that's due to the fact that we want these devices to be durable and be used from a long-term perspective. The window. Now, this is quite a unique feature. There's no device on the market that allows this, but the Arctic has a retractable window which can be lowered for users who would still like to have partial body cryotherapy and have their head sticking out. And this is usually for beginners who feel claustrophobic. This is their first time. They want to be able to experience it without really having the overwhelming feeling of their head and neck exposed. So the window can be raised and lowered. So it makes it a two-in-one device of partial body cryotherapy and whole body cryotherapy. We believe that the music that you listen to during your cryotherapy session is a great tool on making time go faster and keeping your mind off it. So we have very high quality speakers and a music system in there controlled by Bluetooth, so the user can put their own music. And also it has a two-way communication system where the operator, when the window being closed, can communicate easily with the user inside. Also, the system has an inward screen, and the inward screen allows the patient or the users to see how much time they have left and to see a countdown. But it can also be personalized to the operator, where the operator can then be able to give more messaging or brand messaging of their business through this portal. So that's a little bit about the features. Now, also the device is very user-friendly, and that's something that we've done on purpose because we do have a lot of systems which are being installed in homes and in a private setting. So it's very easy to use. It's ergonomically designed. So as we said earlier, safety is one of the most important things for us. And we wanted to create a unit which would be serviceable by all major gas companies. And that's what ergonomics means to us, is we want to make sure that the device does not put the user in harm's way, nor does it put the operator in harm's way. So that's something that has been very important. So our unit has been cleared and approved by major gas companies around the world to be serviceable by gas supply. So which allows operators and businesses to be able to be serviced by major professional gas companies rather than smaller agents who would not be able to match pricing of the major gas companies. It's been built for high volume usage. We, as a minimum threshold, what we wanted the system to do was to be able to do 100 treatments on a daily basis, back to back. So it's been built for commercial high volume usage. Now, that doesn't stop someone from using it from a low volume perspective, only once or twice a day. But if you are a cryotherapy center, or if your operation is looking at moving a high volume of footfall through the machinery, That's what it's been designed for. Last feature that is probably one of the more important ones is that the device is Wi-Fi enabled. Our devices can be connected to the internet, which allows the maintenance teams to remotely check the health of these devices. Also, when we come out with upgrades of softwares, when we come out with new features and new protocols, these can be remotely upgraded from a firmware perspective. Also, it's great from a data collection standpoint, where our operators and our cryotherapy device owners are able to collect data from the units on how many sessions are being done, and that gives them a way of being able to verify the number of treatments that are being done on the chamber compared to maybe their appointment management system or whatnot. So just a fail-safe. Now, another aspect of the Cryoscience Arctic is that we have global service teams. We know that from our retail and cryotherapy clinic footprint around the world, that if the machine cannot be serviced and be operational, those businesses are losing money. So we have global service available on these devices. Our distributors and our service agents in most countries around the world now are trained to the utmost standards, cryogenically, from an installation standpoint, troubleshooting standpoint, and are able to help our operators navigate through their installations and the life cycle of the units. Another major part of what we provide with the Cryoscience Arctic unit is training. When the units are installed, we go through a thorough training on how the device has to be used, how it needs to go through routine maintenance in order to keep the unit healthy and operational. So training is something that we really dwell down on and we really focus on when we do these installations. It does have some disadvantages. It requires nitrogen supply. As I had said earlier, currently in this innovative technology space, nitrogen is the way to have the most effective cryotherapy treatment. So it does require nitrogen. Now, another disadvantage is that these units are highly engineered due to the parts that are being used, the cryogenic materials that are being used. Also, the conversion of nitrogen into cold air is a complex engineering feat, and this is why it makes it relatively more expensive than cryosaunas, but still cheaper than electrical systems. So that's a little bit about the devices. I hope that I was able to answer some of your questions, and if you do have any further questions, please feel free to email me directly and I can help you make the right decision. Thank you.